Lighten up, Francis.
Rise, my friend.
Welcome back. Your dreams were your ticket out.
You are listening to The Review on the OSG Sports Podcasting Network.
Hi, everybody. You're back for another episode of The Review, hopefully. This is the Online Sports Guys College Football Podcast, where we talk about everything college football. And it's episode 2 for the season already, guys. Two. That means we've done this for a second time. This is an annual show. We do it every college football season, where we talk about the highs and lows and the things that are happening in the wonderful world of college football. Episode 1 focused primarily on realignment and the fact that this might be, guys, the last year that we see college football the way that everybody under the age of 25 or 30 will ever remember it.
Right.
It's kind of sad when you think about it that way, isn't it?
Yeah, it does suck.
Yeah,
But
it's just all
Hey,
these rivalries dropping. It's bad.
there's that element of history and nostalgia, kind of a little bit like baseball has. Where
history and nostalgia don't pay the bills. You know that.
No, but that tradition, the fall rivalries, the 40-degree days where the tree leaves are turning colors and falling down, and you're getting ready to play your arch rival in a game that means everything to where you're going to be in the conference. All that's going to be gone after this year.
Gonna be gone, and if it's not already.
It's not already.
Well, it's been gone for quite a while. I mean, think about those great Thanksgiving weekend rivalries and how many are still around. I grew up with Arkansas and Texas A&M, Nebraska, Oklahoma. Those were like appointment television in my household, and they've been gone for, well, some for 30 years, some for about almost 20 years. So, I mean, to me, they've kind of gone by the wayside for the last for that long. So I think it's already upon us. It's just now accelerating to the point where, we're going to have one last great hurrah of a college football season where we have the Pac-12, the Big 12, the Big 10, SEC, ACC, traditional rivalries, but do they matter?
Yeah, and it's crazy. I feel bad for the Pac-12. It's the strongest they've been in years.
Yeah.
Every strong team this year is gone.
Yeah, we're moving on.
The Pac.
But to me, that's, you bring up the Pac-12. To me, this is going to be a great case study for any Ivy League business class or, a business institution as to how to screw up a multi-billion-dollar industry. I mean, you started with Larry Scott and then with the current commissioner.
Yeah, George Cliff. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the arrogance and the tone deafness of both those guys for the last 20 years is what put the death nail in the Pac-12.
Yeah, I remember the short-lived collective of the ACC, the Big 10, and the Pac-12. I'm not sure how long that lasted. I remember a logo where it had all three of those together, and then they never spoke again after that, I guess.
I think it lasted maybe a news cycle.
Yeah.
If that long.
I think it lasted 5 minutes when they left the room. I mean, it was never meant to do anything, and they never followed up on it. It was just, hey, we're going to form an alliance. All right, well.
Or maybe
Yeah.
I mean, in a world where we're living in a world where people are practically throwing money at college football conferences just for the right to be able to say that they broadcast it, and yet somehow the Pac-12 just was like, well, we think we could do better.
Yeah. Well, and when you have a deal on the table from the 4-letter for
30 million per school,
for 30 plus per school, and then one of your hires up in the conference decides to consult an economist, an economics professor on your campus.
So just so you know at home, that's a person that talks about being an economist, not a person that is an economist.
Yes, exactly.
Or they could have been at one point in time.
Those who can do, those who can't teach. So this individual who can't decides to tell his university president, no, I think you're worth 50 and not 30. So on the advice of one economics professor at one Pac-12 university, they take that information, apply it to their ego, and go, yeah, I think you're right. I think we're worth 50. And so they go to the 4-letter saying, no, I think we're worth 50. And the 4-letter basically says, get back.
Ha, 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 ha.
And then it was
Basically,
on look at the Apple deal, which started out at what 2025, but had a graduating scale that they think they could get to 50 in a year or two. And the ADs and president at Washington and Oregon looked at it and said, are you effing kidding me? And hello, Big Ten. And then that's where the dominoes began to fall, and the Pac-12 became Pac-4. But again, what does it speak of, John? It speaks of ignorance. Yeah, it speaks of being just arrogant, and that's what the Pac-12 is. That's been the bad part about the Pac-12 for the last 20 years. The last two commissioners
Secure the
reading
bag.
the room. They couldn't read the room.
And the room wasn't really that difficult to read.
no, and you ended up. So then, our friends at Apple decide to give them a deal worse than the Major League Soccer contract.
Yeah.
Because it's applied, Marty, to metrics and subscriptions
Mhm.
and the delusional idea that you're going to get more folks locked into your subscription model than Major League Soccer.
When the WNBA is laughing at your media rights deal, it's bad. Now, don't let the Big Ten off the hook. Warren, who just left the Big Ten to work for the Chicago Bears, didn't get that big deal signed.
Yeah.
And he's creating a whole lot of conflict with a lot of ADs where there were certain things where they didn't want to. Some teams wanted to play at certain times and avoid others at all costs, like Iowa, for example, with that tradition of waving at the kids, the children's hospital. They don't want a 9:00 game.
Right.
The kids are all asleep. They want to do
Or
everything
they're
at
having
noon.
breakfast. Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy. But he left without having that deal signed.
Way to
So
go,
they made that big release, but it wasn't finalized. And they found that out after he left. Just so he doesn't get off scot-free, because the Pac wasn't the only one with a crappy commissioner.
But yet they still ended up getting it done, and now they're going to be the Big 10/18?
Yeah, 18 for now.
Well, the advantage that the Big Ten had is that, again, it's mainly land grant institutions, state institutions with a lot of alumni. They already had a deal in place with their own network. So they had a lot of things going for them. And yes, Kevin Warren was probably on the same page as Larry Scott, in over his head, and didn't know what to do. He's a professional sports executive. He's not a college guy, and that's what the ACC is discovering right now. So I think there was a lot of built-in advantages for the Big Ten. But I agree with you, Marty. I mean, he's not off the hook. I mean, this is the guy who canceled a season and almost caused a revolt in his own league, especially with they
had a player-led revolt.
Yeah, especially with one of the blue bloods, Ohio State. Ohio State is ready to bolt and play a college football season in a different conference for a season, just because they had national title aspirations. So yeah, I totally agree with you with Big Ten.
The Pac hired a good person right now, who's the de facto commissioner of both teams or all four teams, where they got the XFL's old head honcho, and he's working the backdoor channels trying to get something going.
Oliver
I'd
Luck.
like to see him join the American, to be honest, because it just works out geographically, but they're probably going to end up picking a couple from the Mountain and a couple from the American.
Or just go ahead and join the Mountain West and get it over with, and you don't have to worry about it. And I still maintain that you just need to go ahead and switch the nicknames of the Big Ten Conference and the American Conference, because the Big Ten 18 takes up more of America than the current Conference USA does. When the Conference USA gets to 10 with Kennesaw State, just give them the Big Ten and give the Big Ten Conference USA, and then the whole thing is solved.
Now you're talking about a branding nightmare.
Big Ten adds two more. They can have two 10-team conferences.
Which means you would end up with
the Big Tens.
You would have Big Tens. You end up with 9 conference games on your half, traditional rival, and then a homecoming game and a payout game. So no, that makes sense for 12.
Yeah, I do like Ohio State's tradition of getting a smaller, for a tune-up game, they get a smaller state school so that they can get some money in their coffers. Like thankfully they're doing that for Youngstown State, which always ends up in a nice improvement on campus somewhere after that game.
Mm-hmm. Hey guys, speaking of the Pac-12, we had a little bit of football here in week 0. Your headliner game last, I guess, USC, who is going to be in their last year as a member of said conference, wins their first game. They beat San
Jose. I mean, Caleb Williams threw for 4, and I mean, they put up 56. And I know that early on, you're going to take that run from Caleb Williams, and that's going to be his marquee Heisman moment. Turns a fumble into a touchdown. So they're going to have that on the early. They're going to have that on the early reels for Caleb Williams. But yeah, you won by 28. And I don't even think it was that close, although good on Sparty for putting up 28 on USC in a shootout.
It does make me wonder if this is the same USC team we saw last year that didn't have any problem putting up points against inferior competition, but also didn't have any problem giving up points to that same team.
I think it only matters when they play in mid-October, when they got back-to-back games at Notre Dame and hosting Utah, because those are fundamentally sound football teams. Will they have the horses to be able, on defense, to be able to keep up with the USC's offense? Lincoln Riley is a master at having offenses prepped and ready for big-time teams with that have big-time defenses statistically. But Utah and Notre Dame are a little different matter here. They've got elite athlete. Well, Notre Dame has elite athletes. Utah just outworks everybody. Urban Meyer, or not Urban Meyer, he used to be the coach of Utah. I'm talking about Kyle Whittingham. Does a great job of coaching up his talent. So let's go with that.
In Notre Dame, they had their opener this year in Ireland versus Navy, and they rolled up a 42-3 win. Sam Hartman with 4 key passes. Yeah. And J-Dub, who unfortunately could not join us this week due to some vocal issues,
squeaky bones,
made the comment, and I kind of agree with him on social media that it was weird seeing Sam Hartman quarterbacking Notre Dame. But then again, my response to him is, that's college football in the free agency area, which is really where we're at right now.
Welcome to portaling. Yeah, welcome to free agency.
Yeah, how many years has he been in college football? He's on
72.
He's been there 5. This is his 5th year.
I was gonna say his beard's older than some of his some of the other guys on this team.
Exactly. No, yeah. But he looks like he's a good fit for that offense. But Sam Hartman is an incredible talent. He can flat out play the position. He's going to be a great addition for Notre Dame. But yeah, it was weird to see him in a Notre Dame uniform rather than the old gold of Wake Forest. But he's going to fit in nice.
I'm still not sold on Notre Dame though. They gotta play a team.
Well, it was a scrimmage.
Yeah, it's a
Basically.
warm-up act.
It's a roadie. It's a road trip.
Beautiful stadium, though. I got to give it that much. That was
Speaking
nice.
of warm-up acts, UMass and New Mexico State also played in quite an interesting game. A game won by UMass, 41-30 in New Mexico. In the fourth quarter of that game alone, UMass scored 28. New Mexico State scored 20 points. And I don't know.
That was a fun. I watched the end of that game. It was fun.
Yeah,
that
but
was.
Can you pronounce the name of the quarterback for UMass?
I cannot.
I will because from Tech, Tyson Famachan. Yeah.
That's right. I forgot he was at Tech.
Yeah, Tyson. Yeah.
Well, I mean, he put up some impressive numbers, almost 200 yards passing and almost 100 yards rushing. So let's just say he's UMass offense. To me, it's two of the bottom feeders in Division One. Putting on an entertaining game.
Jerry Kill gets a lot of credit for me for that tattoo.
Well,
he got New Mexico State to a bowl game last year.
Yeah,
and they won it. Yeah,
you got to admire the fight. The game's over, and they're driving at the end, and there's no time left on the clock, and they still come up and score. I kind of felt bad they didn't get to kick the extra point after they went through all that drive. I mean, they had a face mask on that where it was cartoonish, movie style. The guy grabbed his face mask so hard, the quarterback threw the football looking through the back of his helmet. His helmet got completely turned around, and he threw the ball anyway to make sure he got the penalty. And then they had to announce over the loudspeaker that he was allowed to remain on the field due to the severity of the face mask because he had no choice but to take his helmet off to get it back on.
I remember.
I thought that only happened in the cartoons.
Yeah, it was something out of Bugs Bunny. It's like Daffy Duck's bill on the wrong side.
I remember back in 1989 covering a high school football game with Webb City, Missouri. I forget who they were playing, but Jerry Kill was a head coach at Webb City, and all the traits we've talked about, he displayed back then. Fundamentally sound coach, the type he rolls his sleeves and gets in with the linemen and motivating. And I'm not surprised he's had the type of year. Just health issues or type of career. Just health issues have gotten in the way with Jerry Kill. And New Mexico State's a perfect landing spot for him because not much pressure there. If he has a great season, he can walk on water, and he had one last year. So maybe a little temporary setback, but the guy can flat out coach.
Guys, we got about a minute to go here in the first block of the review. Really quickly, Vanderbilt gets on the board with a 35-28 win over Hawaii in a partially under construction Memorial Stadium. They started a rebuilding project. They were going to add end zone seats to that one open end of the stadium at Memorial Stadium. They haven't quite finished the project.
No.
And I'm still curious as to why they're doing that project, for the simple fact they can't even fill up what they have.
Irrelevant material to the argument, counselor.
Well, it's easier to get a sellout when you take out a third of the seats.
But the Commodores 5-7 last year. Clark Lee's got them moving in the right direction, and they start off with a nice win.
And they had storms during that game too, didn't they?
Nice win, but to me, it's a typical first game of the season type of game. I got to see what they do in week 2 before I have any judgment on Vanderbilt. To me, they're building the and closing the end zone because it's extra seats for the visiting team to be able to buy tickets, and they get the profit off of it. So, great move by the Vanderbilt athletic department.
Okay, guys, we're going to go ahead and wrap up here in the first block of the show. When we come back in the second half of the show, we're going to talk about predictions and the upcoming week 1 schedule, because those games we just talked about were technically week 0. All that and more when we return for the second half of the show. Stay tuned, everybody. We'll be back in just about a minute.
Please like and subscribe.
Hi, I'm Gary Sinise. There are thousands of veterans still living on the streets of our nation. Please support Veterans Matter. Your donation can help house a veteran in minutes and prevent another from losing their home. Donate at veteransmatter.org or text VETS to 41444 to make a donation of any amount. Let's all help Veterans Matter take care of our own. Thank you.
If you've been hurt in a car wreck, contact my friend Steve Apolinski of Apolinski and Associates. He's been representing individuals for over 30 years throughout Georgia and Alabama. Email him at steve@aa-legal.com or call him 24/7 at 404-377-9191. The initial consultation is free.
Toto, I have a feeling we're not in Kansas anymore.
Thanks for sticking around, everybody. You've made it to the second half of the show. First half, we talked a little bit about realignment, college football not being quite the same thing. And then we also kind of went through some week 0 games. Looking ahead, guys, before we get into the schedule for the official week 1, since week 0 is technically the starting week, but week 1 is also the starting week. Talk a little bit about how you see this season playing out. Do any of you see it playing out any different than the usual Georgia, Ohio State, Michigan, LSU? Anybody outside of that group you could see joining into the fun this season?
The only thing I'm missing is chalk. The chalkboard, I would have brought it over to show it to you. That's what I think is going to happen.
Oh, phew, I thought for a minute you were going on a Kansas riff.
No.
Chalk.
Then I would have done this. No, and J-Dub probably would have fallen out of his chair. No, I needed to go to a chalkboard and bring over the writing utensil that's associated with it.
Yeah, well, Kansas is certainly going to be improved in year 2 under Lance Leopold.
Yeah.
Well, there's nowhere to go but up.
Yeah, we're definitely not putting them in any way, shape, or form in that conversation on the top college football playoff contenders list.
No.
I think there's 2 programs that could probably break through that foursome that you brought up, Phil. And one is Southern Cal, because they do have elite offensive talent. They have one of the best offensive minds in college football as their head coach. It's just whether that defense can get the key third down stops or goal line stands or can be much better than last year. And that was the criticisms of Lincoln Riley's Oklahoma teams, but they outscored everybody in that league, and they can do that in the Pac-12. The other team is John's alma mater, Florida State. I really like what Mike Norvell's done there, upgrading that talent. And if they have what I've read, the line play that they have on both sides of the line, that could be a possibility. Florida State breaking into that college football semifinal. They're in an advantageous league. They've upgraded the talent. And if you're looking at 2 teams that could break that foursome, those are the 2 I would look at.
John, the floor is yours.
As I have maintained on this program for years, I have not been a fan of the hire. And along those same lines, I give my front office a lot of credit for sticking with it and being patient, because we've seen in far too many universities where you end up with a 2 and done and you make things worse. See Taggart, Willie. But they stuck with Norvell, and I give them credit for doing so, despite what happened at the beginning of his hire. And so we'll see what happens. I still think it's going to be chalkier than chalk. This college football season to me is going to taste like chalk, which means that we're all 8-year-olds in 2nd grade and we want to see what it tasted like. But Marty, I see more of the same. MOTS, that's what I'm looking at this year.
Yeah. What I'm kind of interested in, we touched on a little bit last week, is with all these teams leaving their current conferences and the officials being paid by those conferences and still working for those conferences next year. Yeah. What's going to happen with Texas and Oklahoma? How are they going to be treated? USC.
I know
every team but like 2 or 4 in the pack. Like, how is that gonna? Because they're not gonna be doing them any favors. I mean, I doubt you're gonna see a late hit on a quarterback called on any of those teams that are moving.
Oh, I don't know. Did you guys see the commissioner of the Big 12 already drop a hint to Texas Tech about giving Texas something to remember them by as they leave?
Well, parting gift.
Marty, all I have to do is look at Arkansas's 1991 football season in the Southwest Conference, or last season against Texas and Texas Tech and Baylor. Even though they went to a bowl game that year, every call went against
did
them.
SMU have football that year?
Maybe. SMU had football that year, and I want to say they beat Arkansas that year because they always had Arkansas's number back then. But I just remember, because I covered the Hogs that year, being on the field after wins and losses, and players coming up to Razorback players, basically intimidated them, saying, "Yeah, you go SEC, you go SEC." I mean, that's what the Oklahoma and Texas are going to experience this year, and especially from the officials. I don't see them getting any breaks, and I think there's going to be some bench clears, I'm sure. But I think there's going to be some calls where they're going to be extremely questionable against Oklahoma and Texas.
I know it's going to get ugly. I'm just wondering how ugly it's going to get.
It's going to be very ugly, because that's a league that holds. I mean, that's a football centric league that holds grudges.
Oh God.
I don't see the Pac-12 exactly trying to do that with USC or UCLA at this point. Do you?
Not as much.
They might give them a flower.
Goodness gracious. I'm still trying to figure out, like, SMU offering to not take any money
for 7 years.
That just seems insane to me when you could.
Sherwood Blunt.
I mean, there's all this talk about rich alumni and all of that. And it's like, have you guys ever watched a SMU game? No, I'm probably going to get in some trouble because my wife graduated from there, but empty stands.
Oh yeah.
All the time.
Yeah. I remember watching a game of the Cotton Bowl with SMU. And there was probably 11,000, 12,000 in the stands at the old Cotton Bowl. It was before they expanded it. They don't have a following yet. Again, for the ACC network, it's the Dallas-Fort Worth market. They can charge premium rates for advertising in the DFW if SMU joins. Mm-hmm. So, but to me, it's a desperate move by SMU to get back into the major college.
They've got some decent facilities there.
Mm-hmm.
Like I know people that work in the athletic department, and I know they don't want to give up any income. Now, they haven't said that. I don't want to get anybody in trouble, but I just don't see, trying to swim with whoever's left in the Pac-12, whatever teams they take from the Mountain or from the American. As long as they keep the name Pac, that puts you in a Power 5, or at least a temporary Power 5 conference. It just makes no sense to me to give up money to join another conference. Like,
the ACC
is this hat is going to be a collector's item after everybody figures out how to get the right lawyer to get out of that, all the legal problems they have with getting out of it.
But the ACC is already looking again. They're trying to reinitiate with Stanford and SMU and Cal.
Yeah, they're trying.
They're trying, but the votes just aren't there.
Why would you join a league to be the stepchild, to be treated poorly, when if you do something with what's left of the pack and take the other two lower tier conferences and put something together, you're the name program in it. I bargaining from a position of loss like that is just insane to me.
Rutgers is a good example.
Well, what's that, Phil?
Rutgers.
Yeah, SMU would be the Rutgers of the ACC.
But you're in the ACC. That's the thing.
It's the brand name. Yeah,
they're taking the branding opportunity over the placement. It's like, look, we'll take the hit, but it's the branding that they're attached to. They're no longer in a Go 5. They're moving up to a Power 5, and that's why Sherwood Blunt and all of his buddies will sit there over at SMU and not do anything about it. It's like,
and for the ACC, it's the Dallas-Fort Worth TV market. But a couple of things too. If and when or snowball chance in hell that Cal, Stanford, and SMU join. It's just for football and men's basketball. No Olympic sport or women's basketball would be brought in. Two, you got Clemson and Florida State, who are going to be solid no votes, no matter how many votes you take, both looking for exit strategies out of the ACC. So all the entities are kind of in a precarious position right now. Can the ACC keep it together? Because you lose a Clemson and a Florida State, that's really going to affect. I mean, I think that starts the dominoes again.
The ACC is the Pac-12 like 3 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's literally every man for themselves.
Absolutely. Every good team is trying to find a way to leave.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So why get into that? Get in something else where you can actually control it.
Yeah. And especially when the ludicrousness.
It's just ludicrous.
A private equity firm. That's what we're talking about now. We're talking about private equity firms and universities kicking the tires with them to figure out how can we do things? Can we go here? What's it worth to us? Can we exit this conference with help of this private equity firm? How can we leverage that relationship? That's where we are.
Welcome to Florida State Credit Union.
Yeah, and you may not realize this, but right now private equity firms pretty much run the world.
Oh yeah,
yep.
No question. Absolutely.
Yeah, somewhere.
But now for a college football, an athletic program to go that window, it's like, yeah, let's open that door. And you could end up with, Michael Dell as, an interested party in an athletic department that wants to figure out what's best for them if it's outside of the conference that they're currently in.
Well, see Phil Knight in Oregon.
Yeah.
You guys ready to talk about games, or you want to talk about private equity?
Yeah.
When did this turn into CNBC?
I want to talk about St. Francis and Western Michigan. That's
Do we need to put a ticker down below?
Yeah, really.
I was just thinking the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
Well, in that case, we will transition into the week 1 schedule, guys, where games officially kick off for the other. I guess there were like 8 games in week 0. There's a whole bunch more in week number 1. Going down the list here, the most interesting game is Thursday night at 8:00. You got Florida taking a trip out to Salt Lake City to play Utah.
Salt Lake City?
Not the easiest, not exactly the best way in the world for the Florida Gators to kick off the 2023 season, because that's not going to be an easy win for
darn.
We'll see what kind of quarterback Graham Mertz is, though, and whether he's absorbed the Billy Napier system. And this is turning out to be a key game for Billy Napier in his Florida career, because now I'm starting to read things about, this is his make or break year, and was it year 2? Yeah, for Billy Napier. Talk about impatient Gators. I mean,
they have a history of that.
I know. Which, I was thinking about this morning, and other than unless your name is Spurrier or Urban Meyer, what kind of program has Florida been? They've still been that mediocre Florida program that they've been all their existence, except with 2 superstar head coaches that came in with systems and were able to get elite athletes to come to Gainesville. So is Billy Napier that, or is he what we expected, the next young coach that has the it factor that Spurrier and Meyer had? What I love about Kyle Whittingham, what he's done at Utah is he's kind of gone against the grain of other Pac-12 schools, is that he emphasizes the play on the offensive and defensive line. And Utah's success has been, and why they've won back-to-back Pac-12 titles, is because they've had a strong running game and a serviceable quarterback that can make plays. So for that, I really like Utah in this game.
Saying you're never going to see a Utah team that's not strong, physical, and extremely well coached.
They're a 7. I think that's about right. They probably clear it just a little bit, but I think that they get worn down third and fourth quarter. I think Utah covers that 7. I don't anticipate a large number on the total, so I'd probably go the under on the total, but I think that Utah does cover that 7.
Oh, Utah definitely going to cover. I've got zero faith in the Gators.
And
Good documentary, though, I guess, or PR piece.
Yeah,
I'm not sure which that was.
Whitewash the facts
from
and
what
not
I
cover
understand. Another interesting game in the Big Ten on Thursday night, primetime game, Nebraska and Minnesota.
Tickets as low as $70, by the way.
Kicking off the Matt Rule era in Nebraska.
Matt Rule.
And he gets to go to Minneapolis. Lucky him. Well, we'll get our first look at the Matt Rule era at Nebraska. I'm interested in Minnesota too. PJ Fleck is a little bit of his backside starting to get a little warm. Is he the guy that can put Minnesota in the upper division? That looked like he was going to do, but this didn't happen. Or is he just another one of those young coaches with a lot of PR savvy? I think that's the question with Minnesota this year. So I think it's going to be a fun game to watch. It's going to be it's going to be a fist fight, that's for sure. Especially if Matt Rule is taking a page from Tom Osborne's book of how to win at Nebraska. So I like Minnesota in the game though, but I think Nebraska gives Cornhusker fans some hope.
I'm not quite sure if they've turned over the roster enough with Nebraska, and I just don't like PJ Fleck. His seat's warm and his act is getting old. Same thing that happened before.
In his butt from that.
Yeah, is he just a PR savvy coach?
Yes.
Moving over.
I look at him and I look at Deion Sanders, and they're just different levels of car salesmen.
Interesting. Moving over to Friday, we got the first of the kickoff classic games. Louisville and Georgia Tech playing at Mercedes-Benz Stadium in beautiful downtown Atlanta.
Is it a conference game?
Yes, it is.
Ooh, Mercedes-Benz. Tickets as low as $32.
Louisville 7.5. I think that they'll cover that. I think that it's going to take a little while for Brent Key and everybody to get warmed up in this one as their season goes along. I think Louisville jumps on them early. I think they cover that 7.5. But I think it's the beginning of another interesting season for Tech. But no, I think out of the blocks, I think Louisville's got too much talent.
I tend to agree with you, John. So I'm gonna go with Louisville, but I think I'm gonna watch a couple of series of that game and then move on to Missouri State, Kansas, because that game just doesn't interest me at all.
As evidenced by what's on your head.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Yeah, I might have a little bit to do with that one. One other game that just kind of interests me on Friday, and I'll mention it because it's the Battle of the Miamis. Miami of Ohio versus Miami of Miami.
Miami, Florida.
The University
in Miami, Florida.
Imagine, if you will, a scenario where Miami, Ohio wins that game.
I would enjoy life at that point.
Tickets as low as $9 for that game, by the way.
Yeah,
just saying.
University of Coral Gables is 17.5. I figure, regrettably, that they'll cover that. But if you play this back, I'll deny I said it. I so desperately want Miami of Ohio to cause a lot of trouble with the University of Coral Gables, but I don't really see it happening, especially on a Friday night. And then 11 o'clock, if you've messed up on Thursday and Friday, your late night special, your Sickos Committee alert. Stanford on the Big Island on CBS Sports Network taking on the Rainbows, and Stanford's a 5.5-point favorite.
But Hawaii's already got a game under their belt.
Yeah, against Vandy.
7-point loss. I mean, they put up numbers and losing to Vandy, but they've got a game. I'm going to go with Hawaii on the very least to cover at TC Chang, but don't be surprised. Don't be surprised if Hawaii gets the Duke in that one.
You know what, John? I think you talked me into it. I'm going to take the Rainbow Warriors. I'm a fan of Paulie's in general, just because the family.
Check.
So they got a puncher's chance at home. Plus, there's that whole, can they pull some shenanigans getting the visiting team to have a little too much fun at the luau?
Absolutely.
Well, I also think they're going to be fired up for this one. Hawaii will be following the Maui fires.
Yeah.
So I think there's going to be some extra emphasis on that game for Hawaii. And I'm sure there'll be some fundraising effort at the stadium as well. And I think when you have emotion like that, and plus they have a game under the belt, that I'm convinced, John, that the Rainbow Warriors will probably win this one.
And with a close game, that you can't discount how much that travel kind of gets you.
Yeah.
How early are they getting out there is a big important question for how close that game is going to be, because that's a big turn time wise.
And moving on to Saturday's slate of games, I'm not even going to get into the Georgia or Michigan games because Georgia plays UT Martin, which is essentially an exhibition game, and Michigan takes on East Carolina. Those are your number 1 and number 2 teams, Georgia and Michigan, going into the beginning of the season.
Michigan's a 36 right now with that one on Peacock.
Yes, but there are a couple of interesting games kicking off at noon. One of those being Tennessee and Virginia.
Tennessee is going to own Virginia.
Yeah.
Virginia is just they're coming off a season where ended in tragedy. The talent level in Charlottesville is just not there right now, and Tennessee is primed to show that they are among the lead in college football again. I see Tennessee in a rout in this one.
And another game. Another 12 o'clock kickoff and an intriguing game for a variety of different reasons. Colorado makes the trip to Fort Worth, Texas to take on TCU, the kickoff of the Deion Sanders era, only it's happening in Texas.
TCU's at 21 right now.
That should tell you everything going into that game.
I just want to see Colorado get hammered. I'm not even going to joke about it. And I'm sure a lot of people here are going to cheer against him too. Like, he's a car salesman. I know he gets a lot of press and everything, but I still can't get the taste out of my mouth from the high school he started down here that was a little bit more than Bishop Sycamore. They got him on, they got recordings of him saying all kinds of terrible stuff to the other admins there, and nobody remembers it for some reason. I just want to see them get destroyed.
Yeah, your preseason number 3 team, the Ohio State Buckeyes. Marty's a big fan. They kick off their season in Bloomington, Indiana versus Indiana. Ordinarily, I would say this probably is a blowout too, but it's week 1 for both of these teams. Interesting to see the Buckeyes start the year on the road.
OSU's 30.5.
Yeah, I don't know if they're going to cover that. They still haven't named a starting quarterback. 2 new tackles. The starting right tackle right now he started 1 game last year due to injury. He started the offseason as a left tackle. They switched him and replaced him with a San Diego State starting right tackle that pretty much led the mountain in false starts. So I have a lot of concern at both tackle spots. Now you look at him, he looks great, Simmons, but we'll find out how good the offensive line coach is if that kid can play up to left tackle standards at Ohio State. Everywhere else, they look better. You can't beat that wide receiver group, and their defense should be a little bit better. Look for Jack Sawyer, now that they don't have him practicing 2 different positions, to cut loose a little bit.
I think Indiana fans will have hope for about a quarter and a half.
Yeah.
And they may even have the lead. But then all of a sudden things are going to kick in. Ohio State's talent on both sides of the line is just going to wear down Indiana. I don't think Indiana has the skill positions to match with Ohio State's. I don't think Ohio State is going to cover, but it's going to be a comfortable win for them. And I think, Marty, you're going to feel a lot better about the Buckeyes when this is over.
Once I see the tackles hold up, that's my biggest worry with them.
And most of the 3:30, 4 o'clock games are kind of glorified practice games, but if you go down the schedule to the 7 o'clock, 7:30 games, a couple of interesting matchups. West Virginia makes the trip to Happy Valley to take on Penn State. Interesting way to start the season for both teams. Not exactly the cupcake warm-up game.
Now, Penn State's at 20.5, and this is the official rollout of B1G Saturday night on the NBC family of networks. So we'll see how they blow up the pageantry and how many different networks they throw pregame programming on. But I think Penn State will be in control in that one. The Duke's Mayo Classic at 7:30. The Battle of the Carolinas, North and South.
Going next.
North Carolina's at 2.5 right now.
South Carolina finished the.
I'll take Carolina in that one.
Yes, Carolina. Yes, take Carolina. Thank you.
I like South Carolina in this game. I think Drake May is going to have his first look as a Heisman Trophy candidate. A lot of people are already penciling him in as the Heisman Trophy winner. And he's an outstanding talent, but I just really like what Shane Beamer is doing at South Carolina and how he's methodically upgrading the talent. And this is a guy that was on a staff with Bob Stoops and with Steve Spurrier and of course his dad. I think this is his time, his breakout season, and I think it starts with the game in Charlotte against North Carolina. And they're kind of my dark horse in the SEC. I don't think they're going to win the East, but I think they're going to be there in the mix.
I agree. I'll take North Carolina in basketball, but South Carolina in football.
Mm-hmm.
I think that one's going to be a shootout too. That game I might try to tune into if I can possibly do it because it looks like it's got some potential to be a barn burner. Speaking of barn burner games, arguably your best game of the entire weekend.
Coastal Carolina, UCLA?
No. The best matchup on paper, at least, 7:30 p.m. Sunday night on ABC in Orlando, Florida, LSU and Florida State.
I love this game.
Yeah.
I don't care who wins. I just think it's going to be this is the type of opening day kickoff games you need to see more in college football. And I love this matchup. I don't think whoever loses this game, unless it's by 4 or 5 touchdowns, I don't think this hurts them. I think we got two competitive coaches, 2 competitive teams with outstanding talent. Just trading paint in the trenches. So enjoy that one. That's going to be a great Sunday night warm up for you.
Oh yeah, I'll enjoy this one. Marty, you want to talk car salesman? The guy at Baton Rouge, car salesman.
Let me see if I can do my spin. He'll never live that down.
No,
as much as I hate that coach, I like LSU in this game.
Yeah, they're 2.5.
I look for another barn burner here. This one went down to the wire last season when these two teams opened up the 2022 season, and I don't expect this one to go any different. It could go either way, but yeah, I like LSU by a nose right now going in. Last game we'll talk about before we wrap things up here on the show, the final game of opening weekend, Clemson at Duke in Durham, North Carolina on a Monday night.
Duke is Duke.
Clemson's 12.5. I don't see it.
Score.
Yeah, I got Clemson covering that 12.5
easily.
Last year though, last year's Clemson team had trouble just getting to 12 points.
I don't think they're going to have that issue this year.
Might have problems getting points. Period.
I don't think they're going to have that problem this year, and they're still an elite defense. And I like what Mac Elko's done at Duke, maintaining the what David Cutcliffe has built, but it's just Clemson's got too much talent.
Yeah, don't discount their defense scoring too.
Yeah, we wouldn't rule that one out. Guys, it's finally on us. We're officially in the 2023 season. Week 0 is already in the books. Week 1 is ahead of us, and we have company in today's show, although that company is fighting the temptation to be on camera.
Oh,
We got to make an appearance. Yesterday was National Dog Day.
Yep.
yeah, I mean, come on,
Bring
bro.
her up. Come on, Daisy.
No, don't want it.
Am I allowed to say this dog needs more?
I don't care what you say.
Am I allowed to say this show needs more bitches like that?
Guys, I think it's time to put a wrap on things here. We got to edit this and get on with the day.
I know something is
If you
probably
have
getting
stuck
edited
around,
out.
thank you for tuning in. We've got a whole lot more to go as we're just getting into what's going to be the last of the old school college football seasons as we move on to corporate world.
Corporate world college football.
Yes. So for the team, I am OSG Phil, OSG Nelson, OSG Wilkie, and Brother Marty. We are the Online Sports Guys. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. Have a great week, and we will see you after week 1. Bye.
Like and subscribe.